So let's talk about this. This piece of news from Bitcoin News says Bloomberg's Eric Balchunas expects Hong Kong Bitcoin ETFs to struggle to hit 500 million. Wow, look at that face. Isn't that a face that you just want to trust? Eric? The Bitcoin ETFs are going to struggle to hit 500 million bucks. And the reasons are because Hong Kong's ETF market is just 50 billion and inaccessible to Chinese locals. That's fair. We'll hear them out here. No major issuers like BlackRock, and the fees are projected to be 1 to 2% far higher than the US Terror Dome. So let's talk about this dipshit. Eric. When are these people going to learn? They said the exact same thing before the Bitcoin ETFs were launched in the US. Oh, they'll probably struggle to hit, maybe for the whole year, they'll hit 5 billion, maybe 10 billion for the year for 2024. That's what these people like Eric were saying before the American one. So that was in January. It's now April. They expected 5 to 10 billion to flow into Bitcoin for the whole year, 2024. It's been 2 months, 2.5 months since then, or 3 months, whatever you want to call it. And BlackRock themselves have $25 billion worth of Bitcoin. 25 billion. So that's 1.5 times more than they expected, or 2.5, I guess. Sorry. 2.5 times more than expected. That's just BlackRock too. There's also Fidelity and 7 other issuers in the US. But his reasoning, Hong Kong ETF market is just 50 billion, only 50 billion, and inaccessible to Chinese locals. Okay. So number one, you never count on Chinese locals or Canadian locals. We're not the people who move the needle here. It's the institutions, it's the big banks, it's the big money. That's who moves the needle here. Who cares about the Chinese locals? The second one here is that fees are projected to be 1 to 2% far higher than the US Terror Dome. So the reason probably why they're going to be charging fees of 1 or 2% is because it's a different kind of ETF. The ones in the US here, as much as I've said that you should be moving your retirement funds from whatever you hold into Bitcoin, the US ETFs are a joke because you buy Bitcoin there, they hold it for you. They hold all the Bitcoin, or Coinbase does. And then you can kind of get the price appreciation of Bitcoin. But when you go to take that money out, when you go to cash out, they don't give you Bitcoin, they give you cash. And so these Hong Kong ETFs are a much different beast. They're called in-kind ETFs, which means the exact same scenario. You buy the ETF, you get the price appreciation, but when you go to cash out, when you want to take your ETF proceeds out, they send you Bitcoin. And that's kind of it's a nightmare in a sense because, people who are getting into the ETFs, that's kind of their first step into Bitcoin. A lot of this big money, that's their first step. And a lot of people will be doing the same. A lot of people who have money in their retirement funds, they're going to be buying the ETFs. They're going to be paying attention to Bitcoin for a little while. And then they're going to probably transition into holding Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin themselves and storing it themselves or with their own local bank. But in order to do that, the American ETFs aren't very friendly for that because you can't just get the Bitcoin. You have to take cash and then buy Bitcoin with it, which creates a whole nother slew of issues with that. But at the same time, if you were to get the Hong Kong ETF, and I'm not sure what the accessibility is here for us, but just in general, if you get the Hong Kong ETF, you hold that for a couple of years, you see the price go up, you start paying closer attention to it, and then you want to start buying Bitcoin on your own. You said, I don't trust Hong Kong. I want to take this Bitcoin myself. They'll send you the Bitcoin. You don't have to take cash for it. You probably could take cash for it if you want to, but they'll actually send you the Bitcoin. So that's probably why the fees are 1 or 2% higher, is because it's a whole different dynamic there. And I think that if you're smart, you will be paying, instead of 0.2%, you'll be paying 1% of a fee, and you'll have an in-kind ETF, which you can actually withdraw the Bitcoin whenever you want to. So this little weasel face here, Eric, 500. I want to bookmark this tweet and this show and find Eric on LinkedIn and come back in a year from now and see if Hong Kong's Bitcoin ETFs struggled to hit 500 million. I mean, if you've been watching the show, you know that we don't put a whole lot of faith and trust and weight into people like Eric. But anyways, Bodhi, Jory, you provide great value, always bringing encouragement and challenging us in a friendly way. Thank you. That's kind of the point of the show. And I talked about that on the Twitter space yesterday. I said, I don't really need to sell Bitcoin to anybody, especially people who watch the show. I mean, you get to a point in Bitcoin where you don't need to hear any more sailor talks. You get to a point in Bitcoin where you know what's going to happen here. You cross that line and you understand what's happening here. The geopolitics